The study of music was a basic feature of education among the Shakers. In the early days, songs were learned orally and communicated from one society to another by word of mouth.
You will remember, Sister Lillian, that the first person to urge the study of music was Brother Abram Whitney, a teacher of music and a member of the Shaker Society at Shirley, Massachusetts.
Yes, I remember reading in the records that upon solicitation, Brother Abram visited Canterbury and Enfield, New Hampshire, and gave lessons in the rudiments of elementary music. About 1821, he, with the help of other inventive minds, developed a form of musical notation called Shaker script, or the letteral system.
Certainly, the Shaker script, or letteral notes, so called because of the use of letters instead of the conventional round notes, was a quaint system of sight reading. In this method, the first 7 letters of the alphabet were used. Capital letters were whole notes, small letters designated quarter notes, while italics were used for eighth notes, and half notes had a line added to the side of the letter. In 1843, a Shaker brother from Mount Lebanon by the name of Isaac N. Youngs changed this method and used only the small letters of the alphabet and altered the system of designating the tempo. He published a pamphlet entitled A Short Abridgment of the Rules of Music. Later, Russell Haskell of Enfield, Connecticut, wrote a musical expositor, or a treatise on the rules and elements of music, about 1847.
In 1852, our beloved Elder Henry Blinn of Canterbury had a set of letteral musical type made, from which he printed a book entitled Hymns and Anthems. When the Manifesto, a magazine which was published at our Canterbury Society and which had a fairly wide circulation throughout the country, was printed, Elder Henry Blinn, the editor, realizing that many people of the world as well as Shakers were reading this publication, thought it best to use a note system more universal than the old Shaker script music. So he advised the return of standard notes, commonly used by the world. Thus, in 1871, the round note system came back into Shaker use.
Some years later, the Shakers of Canterbury hired Professor Davis of Concord, New Hampshire, to give a course of lessons in music, adding further to the knowledge that had already been gleaned from Brother Abram Whitney. Progress was rapid, as brethren and sisters desiring to add greater dimensions to their religious expression diligently labored to learn all that was offered. Soon the answer to a continuous desire to learn came with the introduction to the society of a Dr. Charles Gilmet of Boston. Dr. Gilmet was a superior teacher of vocal music, both in theory and in practice. He proved to be not only an accomplished vocalist, but an elocutionist and physician as well. Continuous lessons in correct breathing and tone production awakened in all an even deeper interest in singing.
Formation of classes in singing soon followed, composed of groups of children as well as groups of adults. Soon we had numerous well-executed trios, quartets, and double quartets. Family singing meetings were held twice a week, during which each group presented selections for the enjoyment of the others. Vocal training became a must with the Shakers, and a high standard of quality music was soon attained.
Elder Arthur Bruce of Canterbury, a gifted musician even before entering the society, and a brilliant baritone soloist in his own right, formed and directed a Shaker ladies quartet called the Queville Quartet. Under his able direction, and with the added assistance of visiting musicians, the quartet acquired a perfection which brought many requests for their concert performance in various parts of the country.
The quartet sang entirely without accompaniment and could sing at a moment's notice over 100 selections from memory. Nearly all of these songs were arranged by the members.
The instruction received by this quartet was shared with the younger sisters' singing, resulting in a family chorus of unusual quality. First attempts at singing in harmony by the family were ventured in the 1800s, but only melodies were used in church service. These melodies contained lessons in loving Christian living and were often more impressive than the spoken word. The one Mr. Thompson will now sing for us was a gentle reminder in song of the importance of loving daily association.
May I softly walk and wisely speak, lest I harm the strong or wound the weak. For all these wounds I yet must feel, and bathe in love until they heal. Why should I carelessly offend, since many joys of life depend on gentle words and peaceful ways? We shed such brightness o'er our days.
Much of the music used in our church service we believe to have been inspirationally received by members so gifted. Elders Dorothy Durgin, who was especially adept in this gift, kept a slate by her bed upon which she wrote the spiritual messages which came to her in the night or early morning hours. She would then pass the words to the one for whom she thought the message was intended, saying, "I thought of you when these words came to me." Some of these messages were accompanied by melody. Others were set to music at a later date. And even today, many of these songs remain the most loved ones sung from our Canterbury hymnal.
Elders Dorothy Durgin, who was born in Sanbornton, New Hampshire, entered the society after the death of her mother at the age of 8 years. A lover of children, she was given the care of 24 little girls while still a young woman. Because of her interest in the youth, she was appointed teacher of the district school where she taught for 6 years. Her qualities of leadership were tremendous, so it was only natural that she was appointed to the order of eldership at the age of 24 years, which position she held for 50 years. She was probably without parallel as a writer of hymns, and during her lifetime produced over 300 inspired songs.
Have you ever thought, Sister Mildred, how much we are impressed by the simple little happenings of childhood? I mean those little things that are said and done by those around us. And yet, how deeply these seemingly minute occurrences affect our whole life's philosophy. I remember when, as a young girl, I was hurrying up the stone walk leading from the Canterbury office to the main dwelling house, intent on reaching my sewing room. A firm voice called my name, and I stopped as Elders Dorothy approached. "Lillian," she said, "look off to those hills. Have you seen how the sun has bathed the fields in its golden light? Have you noticed the shadows cast by the maples in the lane? Well, stop and look, Lillian, for God's peace and beauty lies all about us. How often since I have paused in my hurrying to admire the beauty that I had passed unheeded, until Eldest Dorothy's seemingly simple words brought my feet to a halt and caused me to realize and appreciate the wonders of our glorious universe.
Indeed, Sister Lillian, Eldest Dorothy was a person of great magnitude, with such a wonderful ability for awakening the higher thought in others. Although too young to have known her personally, I have always loved her beautiful hymns, especially the one called Abiding Care, which we now sing.
Music used in church service was without instrumental accompaniment, as the mixed voices of the members formed an adequate chorus. However, as diminished numbers left the singers without the assistance of male voices, an organ was introduced as vocal support.
Sister Lillian, many people are curious as to our reason for using dancing or marching in our services.
Yes, I realize that this is a point of question in the minds of many, but it is amazing how much sound reason is behind the thinking of the early Shaker leaders, and how much psychology was employed. It was the belief of the Shakers that every faculty should be used in the worship of God, and so various forms of physical exercise were introduced, particularly the march. A group of 8 or 10 singers occupied the center of the room, around which the members marched in perfect formation. It was with a graceful rhythmic motion of the hands as the members marched to the slow or quick tempo of the music. Dancing, or the march, was not such a strange occurrence during a religious service of the early days of the church. We have mention of David and Miriam in the Old Testament dancing before the Lord. Also, there are 19 instances where dancing is mentioned in Mosaic law. There was also a definite psychological purpose behind the Shaker marches, seldom explained and rarely understood by the general public. The perfect rhythmic body motions of a worshipper who coupled this activity with a deep mental and religious fervor, developed within himself a great spiritual inspiration, almost impossible to understand or describe by one who has never witnessed or participated in this form of worship. However, as years passed and older members were unable to join in the march and the exercises, they were brought to an end, as it was felt necessary to maintain a perfect union among all the members, a service in which all may participate as one. Today, our Christian service is quiet and more formal, resembling perhaps the prayer meetings held in many of the churches of other denominations. But if one could have been present at our earlier type meetings, as I was, and could have seen the perfect spiritual union that was produced when a soul combined the physical motions, the singing voice, and the dedicated heart in giving praise and thanks to God, I'm certain you would have agreed that the physical motions added a still greater dimension to the expression of prayer.
The first organ was introduced into the society by Elder Henry Blinn. It was one of the first built by the Prescott Organ Company of Concord, New Hampshire, and can be seen today, still in working order, in the little museum at the Canterbury Shaker Village. In those days, it was placed in the schoolhouse, where the members gathered for instruction in the reading of notes. The introduction of instrumental music was quite an innovation among the Shakers. Elders Dorothy Durgan felt that music added refinement to a young person, so she made a trip to a music company in Boston to investigate the purchase of a second organ for instrumental practice.
Elders Dorothy possessed a gracious, winning personality, which so impressed the proprietor of the music company that he presented the society at Canterbury with a fine cabinet organ. The first piano was introduced in 1872. Later, pianos owned and brought in by those who joined the society provided added facilities for instrumental practice.
In order to encourage this musical movement, Elders Dorothy held monthly recitals at which each pupil was represented, everyone from the beginner who could do but simple 5-finger exercises to the advanced student who could perhaps encompass the difficult music of the classics. Every child that so desired was given the opportunity for musical instruction. Soon other instruments found their way into the society, and an orchestra was formed, consisting of 2 violins, a cornet, a bass viol, and a piano. Later, another orchestra was organized, consisting of 2 violins, a cello, a cornet, drum and cymbals, 2 saxophones, and piano and organ. This orchestra was under the direction of Professor Arthur Nevers of Concord, New Hampshire, who also directed the well-known Nevers Band of Concord. The Society at Sabbath Day Lake, Maine, also formed a small but fine orchestra, and indeed every society made the study of music a part of their educational life.
On special days, such as Easter and Christmas, the members arranged concerts, at which time they presented music from standard cantatas, such as selections from Handel's Messiah, Haydn's Creation, Gall's Holy City, Mendelssohn's Elijah, and so forth, plus many choruses of our original composition. Few persons realize, Sister Mildred, the tremendous effort involved in tracing the authors of these Shaker hymns. We have always considered that those who received them were only the channel through which the songs flowed. In other words, we believe when a person is consecrated, the personality of the individual is lost in the Spirit of Christ.
True, Sister Lillian. If it were not that we have remembered the occasion and circumstances connected with these hymns, their authorship would have been probably submerged. For our hymn books bear only the name of the society where the hymn was composed, never its author. But recently, and only after the author had passed away, did we consent to give out these biographical facts, for we believe that the talent to create a work of art, to invent or to compose, is God-given. It is a gift, and we are but the tools, chosen to be used in His service. We have, it is true, the power to increase these talents by study and by application, but we are to take no credit for these gifts, for we are merely His instruments, and they are loaned to us to be used for the blessing of others.
One of our lovely old hymns very ably expresses this sentiment in the words, "Lost in the tide of doing good, thy Master's humble name, so thy discipleship record beyond all earthly fame."
The musical education of the Shakers has certainly come a long way since the days of Brother Abram Whitney's letteral notation and the simple melodies of our early founders. Today, many of our hymns and anthems are much more elaborate, as you will hear in a later Shaker anthem entitled Rejoice, although perhaps rather empty without the addition of a full vocal chorus. You will get some idea of the quality of the composition.